Hey, this is Abel, and I'm in love with the new SAS Viya free trial environment. You can navigate to it from our site, readywillingandable.com. SAS will provide you with access to their Viya cloud environment for 14 days for free. The sign-up process is fairly straightforward, but I've already done this, so I'm going to skip into the environment now. Underneath Explore and Visualize, we can access visual analytics. SAS has provided several example reports. Today we're going to look at the example report titled, Can You Find the One? And this is a great report. It's very informative, and it could be helpful to a matchmaking service organization. But this is not building out a predictive model that would help that matchmaking service score new members as they enter into their membership. We're going to deconstruct the dashboard just a bit, build out a few predictive models, and build out a predictive model championship that could be used if a matchmaking service intended to score new members whenever they join. Inside of Visual Analytics, the visual statistics and visual machine learning tool sets have been activated in the free trial environment. And in order to access them, we'll simply edit the report. And then we can see that on the side panels, new functionality has popped up. I'm pretty familiar with these variables already. We'll begin to build out our model championship by clicking a new page. And on this new page, we'll go ahead and find an object for our modeling process. We'll scroll down to the bottom under Machine Learning, and we'll just go ahead and begin with a gradient boosting model object. We can grab that object and drag it into the palette. I want to go ahead and begin by renaming the page. We'll name it Modeling. And then we want to assign our response variable. We identified the response variable on the dashboard a moment ago as match field. Then we want to include all of the input variables, our predictors, that existed on the dashboard. Average number of dates, number of evenings, career, field of study, gender, race, the participation goal, and age difference. Lastly, we have 8 different interests: concerts, exercise, gaming, hiking, museums, reading, theater, and shopping. When we hit apply, it will actually begin to train the model. And the initial model is fully trained now. It just takes a second. We're going to change our view over to a rock chart. We can see here that our rock chart is not amazing, but it's not terrible either. It's a good kind of initial pass. One of the items that is of interest here is determining whether or not our models are overfit. We're going to add a partition ID. We'll go create one quickly. On the left panel, we'll go to Data and New Data Item. Add a partition variable. We use simple random sampling for now, and a 60-40 split between training and validation. Once it has been created, you can see it here. We'll go back and activate our model node once more, add our partition ID, and then you can see that the model is indeed being informed by this partition that we created. One of the other key items of note here is that the variable importance chart is beginning to allow us to relate each of these input variables to each other. Field of study appears to account for the most variance of the target variable, followed by the average number of dates and age difference. If you're viewing the dashboard It doesn't show the relationships between any of the categorical variables. It does show a correlation between each of the numeric variables, all of these levels of interest. Now, back on the modeling, we want to build a championship, and a very easy way to do that inside of the Visual Analytics interface is to begin to duplicate the model that you begin with. So this is just our starter. If we go to the snowman on the top right of that model object, we can choose Duplicate As, and then we can begin to duplicate this model in several different ways. We'll expedite a bit of this, and then we'll circle back and discuss validity, accuracy, and our eventual choice of which of these to enter into the championship. We started with a Bayesian here. Next, we'll go ahead and build out a decision tree. Each time that we replicate one of these models, it is training in real time. So you can see that the moment that we push the Duplicate As button and we choose the algorithm we want to duplicate it as, the training process begins and ends almost simultaneously. Let's go ahead and choose a random forest. We'll choose a logistic regression. And lastly, we'll build a neural network. And on the neural network, for this target, we're going to navigate over to our options, and then down to our optimization method. We're going to choose SGD in this case. And now it's getting a little busy on this page. We'll expand some of these out in just a moment. But we have taken our initial gradient boosting model, and we've built out a total of 6 different predictive models now. So let's just talk about each one of them in turn. So quickly here, the neural network is showing a fairly insignificant rock chart. Our logistic regression appears to be performing a bit better. You can also see immediately that the variables in the fit summary differ from the variable importance chart from the gradient boosting model before. On a random forest, here again we have a very poor rock chart. And our decision tree has a very poor rock chart as well. Now, if all of the models that we build out tend to show a very similar area under our curve, then it's important to note that we have most likely not used all of the data available to us. So we'll build one final model here and make some significant improvements to it in short order. So I'm going to duplicate the original gradient boosting model. Instead of just using the variables that exist on the dashboard, we're going to begin to add in all of the other variables that are in our data. So I'll activate the new gradient boosting model. We'll go back over here to our data roles. We're going to add in new inputs, and we can select all of these inputs except the one numeric version of the target variable. When we hit apply, we'll see that the gradient boosting model is retraining. One of the most important items to note here is that variables that did not exist in the dashboard have moved to the top of the variable importance list. The like score, the attractiveness score, and a wave variable have all reached the very top of the variable importance list, and you can see that our predicted model is beginning to improve fairly drastically. Now, we can see one of the models, but we want to see them all in a championship, so we're going to add a new page. We'll name this page Model Championship. And we'll navigate back to Objects, scroll towards the bottom, and we'll choose our Model Comparison object. The Model Comparison object allows us to compare models that share a partition, a data source, and a target variable. In this case, all of those models share this necessary requirements. So we're going to choose all models to be included in the championship and choose OK. And the model championship by default is going to use the KSUDIN selection criteria to compare the models against each other. And we can see that the gradient boosting model, where we added all of the possible variables, clearly outweighs the other models that only use the variables from the original dashboard. That's a very significant rock chart, and that means that we have most likely a fairly decent model to work with. And when we put this model into production for our matchmaking service, and they score new members, they'll most likely be adding new members into matched couples that will be valuable to the organization. I hope that you take a bit of your time and give the free Viya trial environment a shot, and reach out to me and let me know if there's anything that you find interesting or that you'd like to share